In this tutorial series, I'm going to take you from no knowledge all the way through, hopefully, to mastery of the C# language. And hopefully by the end of this, you'll have the skills to take a look at code that you find on the internet, understand it, modify it, and apply it to your situation, whether that's a video game, a mobile enterprise app, or something else. I'm just looking for a place to share that knowledge that I've gathered throughout the years, and maybe you find it useful. So throughout this, I encourage you to post your questions in the comments. You can post your code if you think you've solved a challenge or something, and I'll do my best to try and respond to everybody at least just a little bit. So let's get started. We're going to be using Unity. So if you don't already have Unity Hub downloaded and an install of Unity installed, we're going to go ahead and get that. If you do, check the timestamps below and you can skip to the next part of the video. That will be the setup. So go ahead and open up a Google search and just search for the words download Unity Hub. And it's the very first link right here. It'll offer you to either download it for Windows, Mac, or Linux. So depending on your device, download the appropriate one. Once you've opened up Unity Hub after you've downloaded it, you'll see a page like this, and it's probably going to ask you to sign in. It'll lead you to a page like this. If you don't have a Unity ID, you can click the blue words that say create one. It's free to do. And once you're ready, go ahead and click sign in, and it will automatically sign you in within the hub itself. And there you go. Once your initials appear in the corner like that, you've signed in successfully. The next thing you're going to want to do is install a version of Unity. So you can click Install Editor up here. And I recommend installing the latest LTS version. And you click install, and it's going to lead you to a page that's going to ask you about what build support you want. For now, I'm just going to leave them all unchecked. You can always install these later. And sometimes, there you go, Visual Studio for Mac. Make sure that Visual Studio is something that you check to install as well, since that's the program that we'll be programming in. And then you just click the install button. I'm actually going to be using the older version, 2021.3.3, because the level of coding that we're doing, it really doesn't make that big of a difference. So once your is installed, you can go to the projects tab, and we're finally ready to create our first project. So go ahead and open up a new project, and I'm going to choose 3D Core. So now over here, we're going to choose a name for it. And then for your location, I just make sure that it's saved in a folder that won't really move. So I'm going to go to my documents folder. There's a Unity projects folder, and I'm going to select that one and then click create project. And when the project finally compiles, you're going to see a screen that looks like this. So with the remainder of this video, I'm going to cover two things. One, how to navigate the Unity editor, just basic ways to get around it. And then two, a basic script overview. So to navigate the editor, the first thing that you need to know is that all of these little tabs, like where it says game view, scene, hierarchy, project, console, all of these tabs you can click and drag and rearrange and make the layout however you want it to look, right? So you can make these smaller or bigger. It's pretty great. In the top corner over here where it says default, there's also some pre-made layers like 2x3, split, default, tall, wide. So I'm gonna click on tall, and then it'll change the layout for you here as well. And say you wanna create a custom layout so you want it to look like that always. Maybe I'm gonna snap the game view below the scene view so I can see both at once that are pretty big. And maybe I want to save this. So I'm going to go to tall and choose save layout. And then a little window pops up and you can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it Anna Banana and then click save. And now every time you want to go back to this view, Anna Banana is now an option within that dropdown. All right, beyond that, in your hierarchy view, this is all the stuff that's in your current scene. So we have a main camera, we have a directional light. You can also right-click within this hierarchy view and create other objects. So I'm just going to right-click and create a 3D object that's a cube. And now, ta-da, we have a cube in our scene. With this cube that's here, you can mouse over into the scene view when it's selected and hit F, and you'll focus in on the cube. So if you're ever, for some reason, lost deep in a scene and you want to get back to that cube or that object, you can hit F to focus. And the other thing is you can hold down your right click and pan around in the scene view. And then you can use your WASD keys, to move around similar to how you would in a first-person shooter. It's pretty great and allows you to get different views of your objects. Okay, so now let's actually get into an overview of a script. In your assets folder here in your project view, go ahead and right click and create a new folder all the way up here. And let's just call this our scripts folder. And then within this folder, double click, not within scenes, within scripts, and right-click and create a new C# script. So this script right here, it's highlighted in blue. It says new behavior. Now, this moment right now is the time to name your script. If you name it after, you might get some weird errors. For example, I'm going to name this main. And when you click on your script, you get a preview of what it looks like over here in the inspector view. One other thing that we should do to make sure that when you double click your script, that'll actually open up in Visual Studio is go to File, go to Unity Preferences. It might be File Preferences depending on if you're a Windows, but find your preferences and look for External Tools. And right here where it says External Script Editor, make sure that it says Visual Studio. If you're on Windows, it might be like Visual Studio Community or something like that. But that way, when you double click your script, it'll know what program to open it up in. So when it's done compiling, which mine is going to take forever, you're going to double click and open up your script. I'm going to zoom in with Command+, or if you're on a Windows machine, there might be a little magnifying glass down in the corner, so you can zoom in on your script as well. Okay, so assuming that you're starting out from scratch, we need a little bit of overview of what this is. So to create game mechanics within Unity, we write code in a language called C#. C# is an object-oriented programming language. All of your code will be divided up into classes, and you can think of each class, see here where it says class, you can think of each of these as like behaviors for your objects, whether that's an enemy, your player, a boss, the scoreboard, whatever that is, they're divided up into a bunch of different classes. So my class here says main, which matches the file name on the other side. What we have here is a class structure that is created automatically for you by Unity. We have our public class called main, and this right here is inheriting from monobehavior. You don't need to know a lot about what that means, but all it means is that you can attach this script to a game object, like that cube that we created earlier. We can attach this to that cube. Within this main class, there are these two brackets right here. So everything here is within that class. A lot of mistakes that you'll make are bracket based. So pay attention to your brackets and the dotted lines that connect them. So within our main class, we have two methods, void start and void update. Start is called, like it says right here, right at the beginning of your game. So when you hit that play button, whatever's inside start will run one time. This is great for like setting your lives to 3, or setting your starting position, all of that needs to be called at the beginning. Start is pretty great for that. Update is called once per frame. Update is great for things like checking for arrow key input. You're going to be gaining experience working with this methods as well as creating your own methods throughout this series. The last thing that we'll cover, so we've covered your class, we've covered what these two methods are. You might be wondering, what the heck are these 3 things up at the top? They're not within any class, there's no brackets. These things are things called namespaces. Again, you don't need to know a lot about them, but all they do is allow us to have access to libraries of code. So for example, you might have a different namespace if this script is in charge of loading scenes, like a scene manager. Yeah, so these namespaces, they live at the top of your script. And one little thing that that might help connect the dots here, monobehavior allows us to attach scripts to game objects. This right here, this using Unity Engine, allows us access to monobehavior. So it's all connected. If I put these 2 slashes in front of using, it comments out that namespace, and monobehavior should, be underlined in red, because now that I don't have access to that namespace, it doesn't have access to monobehavior, if that makes sense. Okay, so that's kind of it for how to download Unity, how to navigate the editor, and the overview of a basic C# script. In the next set of challenges after this, we're going to be getting into the very first thing that you need when learning any programming language, and that is variables. All right, if you have any questions, of course, feel free to type them down in the comments below and I'll do my best to answer them. Cool. Here we go.